Gentlemen, welcome back to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Drew here, founder of the Epic Dad Company. Hey, I want to say thank you so much for your support of the show and listening and going down and subscribing and rating. It really helps us get our word out to more dads. And if you guys are first-time listeners to the show, what we are about is fatherhood. We're about fitness. We're about faith. We're about trying to share tips and resources and share incredible guests that are going to help you level up in every area of life as a dad. And so that's what this show is about. I hope you guys enjoy it or getting value from it. And if you do like the show, my only ask is that you go down below and you leave us a review and leave us a rating, right? It's like I said, it's going to help us impact more dads because ultimately it's going to help us spread the word more. And I think there's our message that we have and the guests that we are bringing on. A lot more dads need to hear. And so that's my only ask is drop down below and leave us a review. And so, guys, with that out of the way, let's hop into this episode. I'm extremely excited about bringing on our next guest. His name is Mack Scott. I met Mack through social media. We've probably been rapping back and forth for over a year now. And Mack is a dad of two. He's a fitness enthusiast. He's a CrossFitter. He's a bodybuilder. He's a marathon runner, endurance athlete. And Mack is just an all-around inspirational guy. And so I wanted to bring him on today for us to have a discussion really about how to accomplish a lot more than you think that you can as a dad, right? Like I said, Mack is busy. He's got a full-time career. He's doing all this stuff too. He's got two young children that he's, being a great father towards. And so, you think you're super busy, but ultimately we've got more time than we think in our schedule. Everybody's got the same 24 hours. And if guys like Mack can get out there and get after it and accomplish these great things, then you can too. And so that's what we wanted to chat about today is kind of what Mack has going on, what his approach is to how he balances time. And then also wanted to talk about the challenges that he takes on. Mack is consistently taking on new challenges. Like I mentioned, he used to be a pretty competitive CrossFitter. Then he got into endurance sports, which if you know anything about CrossFit, running is the last thing that you enjoy doing. So making that pivot from CrossFit to endurance, wanted to talk a little bit about that and see what his approach is and why he chose to take that on. And then we want to talk about his new challenge, which is what he calls the road to 240, which is getting to 240 pounds. And so he has been lifting like crazy, eating like crazy, and really trying to put on physique of a bodybuilder as he looks to compete late next year as a bodybuilder. And so you guys are going to really enjoy this episode. Some great tips and strategies coming out of it. And so I wanted to thank Mack for coming on. And without any further ado, guys, let's welcome Mack and hop into the episode. Are you ready to become the dad you know you are meant to be? Good, because this is the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, where imperfect action is better than perfect ideas, promises kept are more important than promises made, and nothing happens unless you make it happen. My name is Drew, father of three, and founder of the Epic Dad Company. My mission is to help dads up their game and become the husbands, fathers, and men they're called to be. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the episode. All right, Mack Scott, the 240-pound man. What's up?
How you doing, brother?
Dude, good to have you on, man.
Absolutely. It's amazing to be here. I feel super honored to be jumping on with you and get some good dad conversation rolling.
Yeah, man. So tell me how the journey's going on the road to 240. Kind of we'll dive into your background, but I'm just super curious to know, making a shift from running all the time to now all of a sudden I'm lifting and eating, 8 meals a day. So like, what's that like? And tell people what your, ultimate goal is with this.
Well, it's funny. I feel like I've realized probably since having kids that I obviously have a few screws loose because I just keep adding more and more onto my plate and trying to pick up new challenges and things all the time. And after doing all that running and fortunately or unfortunately stumbling across David Goggins a few years ago, and it's just changing some mindset things. I find new challenges all the time. So you're alluding to the road to 240 is my journey now to try a bodybuilding competition. So I'm training for that over the next year and some change. So right now I'm basically eating and drinking water all day, every day along with lifting. It's so much eating. There's all eating all the time. That's all it is. So
yeah. What's your calorie goal that you're trying to hit?
So currently right now it's at 4,200, which isn't super high, but when you're eating, so I'm also trying to do this kind of, I guess, clean, quote unquote, clean. Mm-hmm. So and clean food just does not have as many calories in it as all
Yeah.
the other tasty stuff. So it feels like I'm full a lot. But what's funny is I started at 37, 50, jumped up to 4, now 42. So I'll probably get all the way up to close to 5. And you reach each stage, and then you finally stop feeling so full. And then it means it's time to put more in the tank.
What was your weight when you started this?
186.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. So you're putting on, I mean, what, 55 pounds or so?
55 pounds. And I started this journey about, let's say, 3 months ago. So I had about 15, 16 months or so from sort of the day I decided to do this to competition day. So now I've got about 12 months to go. I'm at 207 pounds now, or 208 or so.
Okay.
So the goal is to get up to about 240. It's a guesstimate. It really was just something I wanted to have a North Star to aim for, but basically you got to try to put on and build as much muscle as possible, and then cut it down and see what you got. Take the cover off the car.
What specific competition are you going for?
Oh, it's an NPC competition. It's going to be taking place in Miami. So that's next December. The dates are sort of shaking me right now, but NPC is an amateur organization that basically feeds into IFBB. So the thought was, if I was going to do this, not just do something that was, basic local competition, I would do something that, just in case everything went well, or I really caught fire with this or started to enjoy it, that my efforts wouldn't go to waste, and I could potentially qualify for other things afterwards to maybe get a pro card or something out of it. So,
okay. What is IFBB? Like, I'm kind of, I'm obviously in the world of fitness, right? And I kind of know what it is, but I mean, is that where you're getting sponsored just to go do these competitions pretty much, and like you're a pro weightlifter at that point?
Yeah, in bodybuilding, it can be a little confusing. There's basically a bunch of federations, different federations. It can be similar to like boxing. If you're a big boxing fan, there's a few different federations, but IFBB is International Federation of Bodybuilding, and it's essentially the sort of the premier. It's the main league for pros. So if you have an IFBB pro, they're basically kind of the cream of the crop in the bodybuilding world. And of course, within there's divisions within bodybuilding. It's based on weight, all these categories, basically. Weight. I'll be participating in men's physique, which is what they call like the small guys. It's the guys in the board shorts. So I've met a few of these pros and they don't look very small. So I say,
as I said, 240 is not small.
No. A lot of them don't step on stage, that weight necessarily. It's probably a class above, but I mean, it's very different than, you do CrossFit. I've done CrossFit for a long time. The body types look very different. So they hold weight in places that really maybe are not so functional necessarily. But man, I mean, some of these guys are they're thick.
Yeah.
Thick.
You said that it's the board short wearers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have like a nut hugger or anything you're going to be going on stage with?
No grape smugglers this time. But who knows? Maybe I get to 240 easy, and I'm like, hey, let's go for the next size up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool, dude. That's awesome. I imagine it's been a challenge because it's different from what you've traditionally done, right? And there's probably a lot of struggles that come with that. And you mentioned the eating thing as one. But you kind of rolled from challenge to challenge, right? So like, what was? I want to get your approach on that, like what kind of why you do that. But what was the one right before this? Because you just did a running challenge too, right?
So I did a series of challenges over the last maybe year and a half or so, most of them in the endurance realm. And honestly, it all started a couple of years ago. Read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah,
and
it's a great book.
it just really was a pivotal thing for me. It was all happening around the same time that I just had my son a few months before that. And it got me thinking about all sorts of things and how I just really didn't feel like I was pushing myself much in my life. I was kind of coasting. I've always been the kind of guy who didn't really have to study for tests, and I didn't really have to, I could skip a lot of things and still do okay. And so the book really, it kind of kicked me, right in the nuts and said, why aren't you trying to push yourself a little bit more? And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pick a sport or a challenge like I was doing. Maybe it could be in business, maybe just getting off the couch and participating more at home. So it really got me thinking. And the first thing I want to do is try to do something that made me really uncomfortable. And the easiest thing to think of was to start running, because at the time I was doing a lot of CrossFit, and until more recently, CrossFit was pretty famous for really not having much more than
Yeah,
like an
if there's
800
if
meter
there's
in
like
it.
a run on the
Yeah,
board,
yeah.
you're just like, I'm just not going to show up that day, you know?
Right, right. Or you're like, what's the, oh, can I just do that on the erg bike?
Yeah,
Or
I'll
like,
just do the rower
I'll row it.
instead.
So that was definitely me. And I sprinted in high school. So just the idea of endurance, anything over a mile was
Yeah,
just completely out of the question for me. And a few of my friends were approaching, turning 40. And one of them had this crazy idea that they wanted to run 40 miles for their 40th birthday. And so that kind of got thrown out, over a couple of beers, and just the thought of, hey, we could maybe try this. But at the time I hadn't even run a half marathon, anything. And then of course the David Goggins 4x4 by 48 challenge, was brought up just because of the book and sort of his
did
thing.
you ended up doing that one too, right?
I did.
Yeah.
So the 4x4 by 48 ended up coming first before the 40 miles. And really the 40 miles became solidified after that, because we felt like we were kind of on a high from finishing the challenge.
Yeah, why not run 40 miles? Yeah.
It was like, absolutely, we're definitely doing this 40-mile run. But the 4x4 by 48 was the first challenge we decided to do. It was kind of right on the heels of running a half marathon, which was my first time running any distances at all, really over a mile for time.
What was that experience like for you, the first half marathon? Because we had kind of gone back and forth, and we can go into background how we met, but we were kind of going back and forth, and I saw you training up for one, and I was like watching yours, and I was training up for one as well, and then I had my son about, I don't know, 2 months before mine,
Mm-hmm.
and my training plan just went just like crash and burn. Yeah. And so I showed up at the starting line, like super confident. But then at about mile 10, I was like, oh my God, this is a mistake. But it looked like you were getting after it from training perspective,
We had a couple of runners in the crew of my buddies that I had basically dragged into doing CrossFit, in the years before. So they really felt like it was their mission to drag me in to the deep end of this endurance mission. A couple of them had been, accomplished triathletes, and so it was easy for them to sort of pick this up. It was like their body already knew what to do, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I honestly started with like a couple of Garmin plans for my watch, and really it was mostly just kind of sticking to it and just being willing to put in the days, the bad runs, the days you're sore and achy, and allowing that to just kind of add up to the sum total of all these miles that you run come race day. And then that's kind of the easy day. So it was the first time for me, I realized like, this is something, it was at least in a distance that you couldn't just really go out and just do. And
you have to train for it.
You kind of have to train. Like you definitely have to train for it. So I wanted to pick a challenge to get started that was at least going to test me and make me have to practice, basically. And in that process, I kind of found out that I liked the process of training and practicing, even though my whole life I kind of avoided almost in everything to have to really put in long hours. It was like I just put in enough, and as long as I was good, I that was good for me. So it was the first time that and my wife can attest to it. Even a lot of my friends, I bitched and complained the entire time. It's like, I hate running. Like every single step, every single mile was I hated it. And the more I kept doing it, the more I started to enjoy the process, but I never got to a point where I really enjoyed running.
Going for a run. Yeah.
No, it was funny because a lot of people would say, "Oh, don't worry, just you're gonna love it, dude. You're gonna start loving running."
Yeah, you'll get into it. Yeah.
Never happened. I mean, I never got a runner's high. Like I was always waiting for that runner's high thing, and it just didn't happen. At least preparing for this half marathon. But it was cool to let the rubber meet the road and get out there and just do it. I had no real expectations. I really just wanted to run it nonstop. I knew I was going to run it slower than all my friends. But I ended up doing it and completing it. And even with some foot injuries. So I had some foot injuries a couple of years prior to that, where I had to have some surgery on both of my toes. And so the idea of running, in fact, the podiatrist who did the surgery on my toes said I would never be a marathon runner or do any distances. He's like, just
you're like,
let that ship sail. Yeah. Well, what's funny is because going into that's why I did the surgery. It's like, I'm never going to be a runner. So like, this is fine. Let's do the surgery. And then of course, after I got the surgery done, it was like almost the first thing I signed up for after that, I think, was the half marathon. to decide to do that. So like, obviously it's just how my brain works. So, being able to just run that, it clicked in me. It was like, it lined up with the book, it just, things started kind of lining up like, hey, learn to suffer, learn to go past where people tell you you can go, learn to be cool with doing things that you don't like. And that's cool. It was all these things kind of just started happening. And then I started noticing that I was like being a little bit more dedicated in other things I was doing. It's like it's starting to spill over into other places. And I really got addicted to that idea and feeling. And I think a lot of my friends did as well. So boom, then we'll do the 4x4x48, which by the way, was a wild challenge. If you ever.
Yeah. I know what that is, but for guys that don't know what that is, like tell them what that's about.
So the 4x4x48 is invented by none other than David Goggins, who's, an insane masochist. If you don't know him, check out his books, but he's crazy. But it's 4 miles every 48 hours, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. Okay. So you end up running a total of 48 miles over, 48 hours, so 2 days. And I think he kind of came up with this, at least I've heard him say this before, that he thought it would be a great way to introduce people to running ultra distances, and doing really, really long amounts of running without, just slapping a 30 mile or a 50 mile or something on people and saying, sign up for it and do it. So it's a way to kind of ease your way into it. But of course, in true Goggins fashion, the curveball there is that you're doing it every 4 hours on the dot.
Yeah. Right? Just sleep deprivation like crazy. I can imagine.
Yeah. So, fast forward to doing the 40 miler. When my buddy and I finished the 40 miler together, we both said the 4x4x48 was harder.
Yeah.
Even though you're doing
even
it
with those
2
breaks.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's technically only 8 more miles, but you get 2 whole days. But yeah, the breaks are super short. You get sleep deprived. It's hard to get food down and kind of take care of any injuries or recover at all. So it really starts to stack up that you haven't had any sleep, especially on that second day. Like the 1 a.m. and the 5 a.m. runs or the midnight and 4 a.m. runs are brutal because your body's like, I should be sleeping. And the 4 miles is just long enough that you wake up during the run. Like you can't just sort of zombie out of it.
Yeah. Like I'm awake. Like I can't just go right out of sleep. Yeah.
Once you get back, you're like, shit, it was like just long enough. I can't go to sleep now.
So like for a weekend, if you start that on a Friday evening, you're going to finish up Sunday evening, right?
Yeah, Sunday. So we started it Friday afternoon, finished Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
So, and I like the way we did it. I think the way he wrote it up is you start maybe Friday night. We started in late afternoon, just after everybody was done with work. And I liked that because technically we got one in earlier. So we got 2 before we were really ready to go to sleep that night versus only 1. So yeah. I felt like maybe that, I don't know if that made it easier or not, but it's certainly a couple of guys, we did it with like 8 or 9 of my friends, and a couple of them were very good runners, really, really good runners. And I think about midway through, they really thought this was going to be like a breeze. And then it was really funny to see towards the end, like everyone was struggling all the 10 minute per mile pace. Like it became brutal. Your feet are all blistered up, and it was wild. It was a wild time.
It's interesting your approach to the challenges, like, and I completely agree with you. But I think, where I've felt like the happiest and most accomplished and like just on has been like when I'm going through something hard and I like finish the end, and it's just like such a feeling of accomplishment, to know that like I worked for that and just a huge confidence builder. But I think some of those have been things that I haven't chosen, right? Like some of them have been through the military that like, yeah, maybe I chose the course to go to, but like the actual challenge is just like, it is what it is. And so I think if you're not in that setting, you've got to be very intentional about that, about setting those challenges. And I think that's where I struggle sometimes is, I'm always working out, right? Like I'm going to work out every day no matter what, but I feel like I get bored with it. It kind of gets monotonous if I don't have something I'm shooting for. So I'd love to know like how you take that approach, how you choose your challenges, why you think it's important to have something like always that you're doing.
Yeah, I think, my brother was, I have an older brother, and he was in special operations, the EOD in the Navy. And one of my biggest regrets was not serving. And by the way, thank you for your service.
Thanks, man.
And everything you've done to fight for our freedom. But, it is definitely a regret of mine. I felt like some of the regret came from things like you just said. Basically, you don't really get to pick all your challenges necessarily, but like you're constantly facing adversity that most people just don't understand what it's like to have to deal with those things. And I never really got a chance to do that. I got the softer route in that sense. And something that always stuck with me that he said that him and a lot of guys on his team would do is, every now and again, someone would come up with a gut check workout or a gut check, day of activity or PT or whatever. And he said it was mostly because, everybody knew if you were sitting ready, preparing for a mission or whatever, people would need to stay sharp, froggy, frisky. And I thought, same thing happens for the rest of us. We go through the normal daily grind, and eventually you just get used to doing what you're doing, even if it is kind of hard or stressful, but it becomes the norm and you get complacent and you don't even realize it. And every now and again, it's good to just kind of take yourself right out of that and put something really hard in front of you and just kind of see if you still got it, kind of thing. So, he called it gut check workouts. And for a little while, I was kind of doing one a week. And I realized I'm like, I obviously I must really think I need gut checks because I keep throwing like really hard workouts at
I'm the same with you on the workouts, man. I do, probably one a week where I'm just like, I finish and I'm just like gassed, like miserable, It's one of the ones I love doing, and probably think I'm like a psychopath or sociopath for doing this one so often, but it's 21.2, I think, CrossFit Games 21.2, where you do the what is it? Alternate dumbbell snatch to burpee box jump over.
Oh,
you do
God, that was
10,
so
15,
bad.
20, 15,
Yeah.
30. Yeah. And I'll keep tabs on myself and like
15-minute
keep trying
time
to get it better.
cap on that one, right? Or
20 minute.
20 minute. That's right. That's right.
I remember when I first did that one, I obviously timed out, but now I'm at the point where I can get it by the time cap. I'm finished like 19 minutes. And I just like consistently keep trying to get better and better at that one. But dude, that is a freaking nightmare of a workout.
I do remember that workout. I did that one twice that year to make it under the time cap. But I remember the first go at it was like, because that was wasn't that like kind of the first dumbbell year? Everything was dumbbells.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That was like, what just happened to CrossFit? I thought I knew what I was doing, and now I don't. So that's a really good example. One of the first workouts that I did that stuck out to me was actually a Go Ruck event. You familiar with that organization, Go Ruck? So I went and did a tough with my brother and some friends, and it was in honor of some fallen Navy SEALs from Operation Red Wing. They did it in Jack's Beach in February. Everything was with a Zodiac. They did it, real Bud style. I remember 2 people got pulled out, hypothermia, and I'm like, just like, what are we? A couple of my friends were like, what are we doing? Like, we're almost 40. Like, what are you doing? We weren't in the military. Like, what are we trying to live? And I remember looking over my brother, who was 50 at the time of this, and everyone's huddled like nuts to butts trying to stay warm, and we're all like freezing cold. And my brother's like kind of off to the side. His lips are purple and he's not even shivering. He's just kind of looking at me. He's observing me. I think he just wants to see like what his little brother, like what's going to happen here. And I just remember thinking like, this is what, like, really getting outside, like almost dangerous, but still being supervised, like certainly your wife thinks you're an idiot for doing something like this, but I got done with that. And I felt like, we can do so much more than we would think we're capable of. And in fact, when a lot of people say you're crazy or stupid for doing something like that, it's really because they've never even put themselves in an opportunity. There were so many people that are out there that I would have never thought would be capable of doing, that kind of level of fitness test and that uncomfortability, but they all did. I mean, besides a couple of people with hypothermia, everyone else made it through, even if they didn't look like they were fit or tough or whatever. So it gave me a lot of insight to, wow, people can really like put out when they want to. And I love keeping that like in the back of my mind. I hope to pass those kind of lessons on and along to my kids. It was something to click in after those events. It was like, I know exactly what I need to be doing.
Yeah, no, I don't know, like who, I can credit this to, this quote or whatever, but once you feel like you've reached your peak, like you're typically about 40% of the way there, and you've got 60% left in the tank, that you just got to get past that comfort zone. And I think it's so important, man, to put yourself into those positions, of extreme adversity and stress. Like, one, because it's going to show you what you can get through. But then two, it's going to help you in life, right? Like when those challenges do come up, because just in the regular course of life, especially as a dad, like there's going to be things that pop up. That's just like, it just happens, right? Like a perfect example, my son woke up at like 2 a.m. last night screaming, right? And I'm like, God, I want to get some sleep because I want to, wake up and work out, blah, 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 and could have very easily gotten upset, blah, blah, blah. But then, you think, okay, is this really that difficult? Like, no, I've got to rock him for 15 minutes, And so, I mean, just like little things like that, right? That could potentially stress you out if you're not putting yourself in those, difficult environments.
Yeah, you become, and I think parenting does that to a lot of people, right? Like I think it's the initial shock of, now you got to deal with the, disruption of your schedule. Being selfish takes a new meaning, because now you got this other thing to take care of, and now you got to work stuff out with your partner. I think fitness plays into that too. I'm so glad that I started doing some of these more difficult things. I think it's helped me as a parent. I think it helps a lot of people as a parent be able to deal with, just the wake ups in the middle of the night. And of course, you want to keep your schedule, because of course doing fitness and things like that, it's got to fit into all that, right? You can't just roll in on no sleep on every day and still be able to perform. So there's a give and take in that, but then you start to learn to create that balance and then juggle that with jobs. But I think without doing these tough things, it would make it, I would be reacting so much different than I do now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to, like, you just mentioned something too, I want to touch on that because you're obviously, performing at a high level, and competitively too, right? With bodybuilding now and with endurance athletes as well. And so how do you find the time? Like the biggest challenge that we consistently hear, through just through our company and just putting like surveys out there or whatever, it's like, hey, what are you struggling with, Dad? And they're like, time. Like, I struggle with time. And it's like, yeah, you cool, me too, but like, but like, how are you approaching that? Right. Cause getting to, this event that you have down in Miami and just coming up next year in December, potentially, getting into IFBB and any other challenge that you're doing, like that's going to take up a lot of effort and a lot of time. And I know that, you're not like, this isn't your main job, right? You're not just like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go lift for 8 hours a day.
Right.
Like you got a job too. Right. And so like, how do you balance all this stuff?
Yeah, it's wild because you're totally right. Anytime any of this comes up or I start talking to anybody about this, the first thing they say is, how do you have the time?
Yeah.
And if you were to ask me what I wish I could have more time, sure, same with you. Yeah, the time it's interesting because I have a full-time career with a medical company on the medical sales side. I also have a full-time gig with doing lifestyle optimization for dads and young professionals. And then now, as you see, then I'm in my wife's office, as I was explaining earlier. I'm actually working with her and helping her grow her practice as well. So, and we've got 2 young kids.
Yeah.
So
how much caffeine do you have a day?
Yeah, right, exactly. Good thing there's a pre-workout for that. So what's interesting about the time is even having kids did this to us, and I'm sure you could probably agree with this. And second, certainly having our second, because we had the first kid, we were thinking, how are we going to have the time to like do all the things we want to do? And you have the kid, and then your schedule kind of adjusts and morphs. Like probably you just end up dropping an episode of TV or something along the way, and like everything fits. And then when we were about to have our second, it was, there's no way in hell we would be able, like, how are we going to do? Everything's going to stop. We're not going to be able to have time for anything. And then boom, you make it work. Honestly, we kind of figured out, I think maybe we were just lazy before, or like we were watching a lot more TV, or there was a lot of wasted minutes like throughout the day, or there must have been more sitting time or something, because we're obviously working with the same set of 24 hours that everybody else does. And so I've found that time has just become a place for me to schedule things better and my time better. I utilize my time better with the minutes that I do have available. And of course, some things drop off. And I think the things that are important stick around, the things that aren't, don't. So that can be anything from friends, wasted time watching TV, sitting around time. I think I didn't realize how much of that I was doing before, because if you would have asked me before the kids and the challenges and all the things, I would have told you I was a busy person. And I think most people answer that they're busy. But the reality is you're probably wasting 2 or 3 hours a day watching TV and scrolling through Instagram, to be frank. So
Yeah.
usually when someone asks me that, that's the first thing I'm thinking is like, well, you'll probably stop being on social media and you're probably watching, too many TV shows.
Hmm.
Pick one TV show, you and your wife figure it out. That's all you get.
Yeah. Yeah. We're on to Ozark right now. Speaking of the one TV show.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm on the Kardashian, so I feel jealous.
See who wears the pants in the relationship, Mac. Watch the
Exactly. Yeah,
Kardashians.
exactly. Yeah. Look where I'm working, buddy. Yeah.
No, you mentioned scheduling things. I think that's huge. Like what do you do? Like, what are you doing planning wise to take a look at your week, take a look at your day to make sure you're maximizing efficiency? Because like you mentioned, things are going to shift once you have kids. Most of the guys that listen to this have kids, right? And so they know that firsthand. But one of the things that we can make it behind on, right, is realize, okay, cool, I need to readjust here. I need to have different priorities, but we often don't take the time to schedule those out, right, to block off time to do that. Yeah. And then we often, aren't planning our week accordingly to make sure that we're hitting those key metrics. So do you have a certain approach or anything that you do, like looking at the week ahead, looking at the month ahead?
Yeah, at first I didn't, so it's kind of just winging it. That was always been my thing, is winging it. And then, reality really sets in. And certainly when we had the second baby, when we had our daughter, time really became precious. And I didn't realize how selfish I was before that too. And I still would consider myself, if I'm being objective, is selfish, because I make time for these other things. Then always, anytime you make time for something, there's a trade-off with someone else, right? You're giving time away. So time blocking became a big deal for me. It was something I really had to try to practice to do. I'm still working on time blocking, and time blocking just meaning that I go ahead and set the week up, on Sunday. Anything I have scheduled, I put it in time block calendar. And then behind that, sorry if I lost you there for a second. And then behind that, I basically fill in every other minute throughout the day with everything I'm going to do, including lunch. Right now I'm logging my food, so I have reminders and time blocks set for time to log my food.
Which right now is like 6 hours a day you're eating.
Right. So you want to know where all my time is at right now? It's eating and logging the food that I'm eating. So I've gotten it down to like being that silly, and I set reminders in my phone. And then I also have a shared calendar with my wife. So we make sure that when we have, things that we're doing as a family together or events coming up, that they're in the calendars. I mean, we've got our computer in our hand all day, every day now. So I think there's no excuse to not have everything you have going on sort of in there, and alerting and reminders, whatever works best for you. You got to sort of try. For me, it's reminders and alerts, so it's like I get an alert to say I need to log my food. I get an alert saying I need to eat. I get an alert saying it's time for me to lift weights, because whatever I'm doing, when that time frame comes up, I stop and I move on to the next thing. Because if I've really thought about my week and my day and planned it out and time blocked it, then I should be able to just move to the next thing. Or I've planned it wrong, right? So if you find that you're trying to time block and you're never really done doing anything in the time block, you've probably time blocked incorrectly. So you need to make adjustments there. But that's been working for me lately, right? Because I have scheduled calls for my big boy job. I have scheduled calls, for the people I coach. So those all go in their places. And then I move everything else around all that time and execute.
Yeah, I think planning is huge. Something I could definitely do a much better job of. I do it sometimes, and I fall into the trap where I just kind of go through the motions, and then to me, that's kind of where, if I feel like I'm not on, a lot of times that's something I'll just say, okay, cool. What am I not doing right now? It's like, all right, cool. I'm not planning my week. Right. And I'll kind of have to go back to that, because then I feel like I'm in control again. Right. And then there's going to be some things that pop up during the week, obviously, that I'm not in control of, but ultimately I'm able to be as efficient as possible, going through the week. So, Matt, I want to kind of go back to the beginning, right as you were having kids. So, you've always been into fitness. You were a sprinter in high school, have done CrossFit for a long time. How does your approach to fitness change once you had children? We talked about time a little bit already, but I'd love to know kind of like the reason for doing fitness. Has there been a change there since you've had kids?
Yeah, for sure. I think not only just the energy side of, just wanting to be able to keep up with the kids. I think just thinking in the back of my head, you have the kid and you realize I still need to be able to play catch with my son, and run around with my daughter, or, be able to do cartwheels in the backyard with her when she's doing gymnastics or whatever. So you start thinking about that future sort of side with the kids, but then also on the immediate front, you realize like, I can't have all those things later if I'm not doing something now. And I found some personal sort of relief and gain, honestly, from continuing to keep my fitness up while being a dad. I felt like it was a little bit of a badge of honor, instead of kind of thinking like I'll just settle into my dad bod and just kind of let the pounds roll on. I felt like it was almost made me cooler. I guess my ego liked the idea of like being like, yeah, I'm a dad, but I'm still staying fit.
Yeah.
Right. I still have a six-pack. What's up? There was whatever I had to do to just that if that was what was feeding me, that was my juice. Great. And just knowing that my kids are always watching, even when they're like infants. I remember, and I've seen you make your post too, like literally having the little boppy out there or the little swing, whatever. I mean, my son was out there from day one, watching me work out. And if he does anything in fitness, cool. If not, he'll have seen that always. And daddy was always somebody who was working out, taking care of himself. I know that's in their subconscious somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was really important to me to see that. I didn't get to see that with my father. He had a bunch of injuries, knees, necks, shoulders from football. And so that always stuck with me. He was never really able to do a lot of things with me athletically because he was injured and not in shape. So,
I think it's a different generation too, like my dad was incredible, father, and did everything he could for me, but like, it's just different now. Right. Like, he was kind of that strong, silent type, right. That would go to work, come home and dinner would already be made. And we'd go out and we'd play catch and I played baseball in college and he was a huge part of that of pushing me, to practice and things like that. But what I didn't see though was his effort, right. He was very intentional with me, spent a lot of time with me on things, but I never got to like watch that example, right. Of like, all right, cool. My dad's getting after it in the gym. Like that's something I should do, and kind of have those values and things instilled in me at an early age. And that's something that if I could go back and change, definitely I would. And that's something hopefully, and you mentioned kind of seeing videos and things like that. Like that's the reason why, right. Is like, hey, maybe they're not gonna, want to lift weights or be extremely athletic or anything like that. But like for a couple of reasons, it's like, one, I want them to know that that's important. Like, just from, staying in shape and nutrition and things like that, just from a physical aspect is important. Secondly is mentally, I want them to see me push myself like very, very hard and see that, dad is like getting after it and, he has challenges too. And then, I mean, it's huge. They get in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens as well,
dude. Yes.
But I love it, man. I love, just putting on some music out there, cranking it and just have them going out there playing. And, I've taught, it's funny. I taught my daughter, I have a couple PVT pipes, for CrossFit, of course. And I like running through some stretches and stuff and was showing my 4-year-old good mornings the other day, and she's got her little pipe on her back and she'll go down and she'll pop up, just go, good morning. Good morning.
That's great. So that's great.
Teaching the fundamentals. So
they're literally, they're watching, they want to emulate us. And I just felt like if they're going to be emulating anything, I want to be sure that that's the example that I would want them emulating. And not to say anything about the previous generation, but it just, in my mind, it was like, you came home from working a hard day and like you said, maybe food was on the table, everybody sat around, which I think is something we could do more of today. Right. I think that's something maybe we have lost in the family unit is everyone getting together and sitting down at a table together. So we try to do that as well. But there wasn't really fitness like this. It wasn't like there wasn't a dad fit community, when I was a young kid. And so I feel really lucky to somehow be a part of, hopefully, the next generation of young kids are growing up seeing their dads, taking care of themselves and just being capable beings. I think we're maybe a little softer than our previous generation, but in some ways like this, we're healthier, a little more conscious about those things and maybe more fit. So at least I think in that way we can harden ourselves up a little bit, even though we are a little softer.
Yeah, I mean, technology is great but terrible at the same time. To your point, like seeing a kind of resurgence of of dads that want to take, their family life and make that a priority, their fitness, make it a priority. It's something that, hey, you look probably 10 years ago, you're not going to find anywhere, but,
Nope.
but now, yeah, it's been huge, man, with, kind of the podcast community, guys getting out there coaching, guys that have had some success, right, is huge. And so I want to roll into that too, because you've got a program that you run as well. Is it just dads, or is this kind of, all walks of life?
Yeah, so I have a program that's it's centered around busy professionals, new parents, dads specifically. Yes, I just found that there were a lot of people in that transitional period, like getting married, settling down with a partner or whatever, and having that's a big life change. And then also maybe now you're having a baby. That's a huge life change. Whereas before you had all this time to yourself to get your shit together, and you basically just had to worry about you and your career. And then now you got another person to potentially worry about, and then maybe even another person because you got a baby. And I found that so many guys were just asking me, like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Where are you having the time? All the things you're saying. And I was like, maybe this is what we need to be doing more of, is just sharing that, like sharing what we are doing, how this works for me, how this is cool for me to do. And how my partner, how my wife is able to like kind of help me make all this happen as well, and why it's important for our family and our family unit, and just being open about that, I think has been really helpful. And it's what started the community. So, More Than Average is my brand in the name. The idea, again, is just to be more than average, be better than you are today, tomorrow. And don't settle for the average, right? I think that whole, like, I'm a dad now, just surrendered to the way life is coming. Like the pounds will roll on, I'm more disengaged with my family. As long as I'm still going to work, everything is good. I felt like that was becoming the average, right? And there was really no push for like male excellence anymore, is what I felt. So I started the group, and basically from there it sort of grew into other things. I have a fitness program, an app that I developed, just something for people to be able to use and utilize when they're on the go, or using the gym or the CrossFit gym, whatever. And so it was just, I wanted to get more fitness and more nutrition into people's hands. I felt like if people could just take care of their fitness first, they'll find that other things in their life become easier, right? They can take care of their family, they can take care of their job, and really fitness is going to help you do all that. And I feel like the more we start getting more people to do that, the more I think we'll see improvement everywhere. Yeah. Anyone who's done it, they say the same thing. They're like, my relationship with my wife is better. I'm more engaged with my kids. I got the promotion at work. And
yeah. I don't think I've ever, nobody's ever said, oh man, my life is just so much shittier after I got in shape.
right.
It's not
so
gonna
there's
happen.
obviously something there, right? I just don't know why it took, like you said, 10 years ago, no one was really talking about this. And now luckily people are.
Yeah. And Bedros, I'm sure you know Bedros.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he's got a quote that I love. It says, and I'm probably going to fuck this up, but fitness is the gateway drug to personal excellence, I think is what he says. Somewhere around there, right? It's makes like, sense. It's something that you can control too, right? Like you may not be able to control if you get that promotion at work, right? Like your boss is going to control that. Like you may not be able to control your relationship with your wife, like she's half of that, right? Like you can give the effort and things, but ultimately can't control her. Same thing with your kids, too. Like I can't control my kids, but it's the one area in life outside of a few exceptions that you have direct control over, right? Like you're going to put in the work, you go through the process, you dial in your nutrition, and like you're going to get results.
Yeah. The idea of working on yourself, I think for a long time was labeled as selfish, right? Anybody who was fit was, they spend so much time on themselves. But what I started to realize the older I've gotten, it's not necessarily about how you look or anything like that, but it's somebody who's trying to take care of themselves, guarantee you they bring that same kind of energy 99% of the time to many other things in their lives, and their lives are just better in general. Whether they're a top athlete or not, that doesn't necessarily matter. But even the guy who's just making sure to get out and move his body every day, he's going to be better than the guy who is just surrendered to the dad life, right? And just only worried about, his fantasy football team and, who's playing on Sunday. I think that just needs to change. And I think we've got to hold other men accountable to that. I'm brutally honest when it comes to this subject with many people who talk to me about it or ask me, other people like Bedros, and there's other personalities out there that I think have been very honest, and upfront and really in your face about it. And I think we need more of that. I think we need more of the hard truth of, hey, you guys are honestly, you're just being fucking lazy,
Yeah.
and that's really the problem.
Yeah.
But you can fix it. That's the amazing part. Just like you said,
yeah, is within your control.
All the control.
Yeah, like nothing pisses me off more, man. Like just for example, I'll tell the whole story. It's just hilarious. So, my 4-year-old, she had a ballet recital yesterday. She's in like a church preschool, and they're hooked up with like a dance company for after school or whatever. And they did the Nutcracker, and so we went and sat through. I think it was a 3-hour performance for her to go on stage for 1 minute during the Nutcracker. It was hilarious. But anyway, we finished afterwards, right? And we're like, hey, my daughter's name is Arden. We're like, hey, Arden, like, great job. Like, we got to go celebrate. Like, let's go get some ice cream or something, And she was like, oh, you mean like the ice cream like at Chili's? And so we started like cracking up because she's thinking of that huge like dessert, like
everybody knows that one.
Oh yeah. So we hop over to Chili's. And it's Sunday, and we're sitting down at the table, having a great time. The kids are coloring, whatever. And there's a couple of older gentlemen, just sitting at the bar because it's Sunday, watching NFL football, right? And my wife looks over to me and just says, like, do you just feel like it's like sad? Like, I feel bad, like, for those guys that are at just at the bar on a Sunday, like just watching football and drinking beer, And I was like, yeah, honestly, I was like, this, if you take a look at what's going on in the rest of their life, like, I can guarantee you it's a shit show. And not to say that you can't do that on occasion, right? Like, hey, you got, your boys are in town, you're gonna watch football, whatever. Like, that's fine, but if you're finding yourself doing that consistently, as opposed to, hey, it's Sunday afternoon, I want to prioritize time with my family or prioritize time with my health and fitness, get set up for the rest of the week, things like that. I don't know, man. It's just, like I was saying, nothing pisses me off more than just mediocrity, because you have it within yourself to be great. Like you do, everybody does. And I'm not trying to say I'm the perfect dad or the perfect physical specimen or anything like that by any means of the imagination, but it just makes me mad, man, just to see like untapped potential, when people just like accept what they have.
You hit it right on the head. That's all it is. It's untapped potential. I look at all those people, and of course I can sit back and judge and, and do all the things that you probably run through in your brain, right? Is like you said, I bet you look into their life a little further, and there's a lot of other things that are not sorted out. And, but, I feel like I do want to be sure that if I get the opportunity to ever speak to any of those people, or they come across my path or come across any of my content, that they're motivated or inspired to be more than what they are today.
Be more than average.
Be more than average. Exactly. Because it is untapped potential, and we need to crowdsource that potential. Like, what we need is a whole other generation of people that are continuing to try to push themselves a little bit further and just to be better people all around, because I think that's how we make the world a better place. And so I hope that many people don't like lose sight of that they're really capable of doing more. And I hope everybody gets the opportunity to kind of get that moment to sort of check that every now and again. And sometimes it just comes your way, and you don't even realize you had it coming. But some people just get it without asking for it, but others have to go seek it out. So
yeah. Well, Mac, what's like you're right in the midst of it right now of trying to get to 240. Put on all kinds of veins and stuff that you don't have right now. But and not everybody's gonna want to do that, right? But no. But I think that everybody should get themselves outside of their comfort zone. They should be challenging themselves. So what's something you could recommend for dads that are listening right now that just say like, all right, cool. Like, let me go take on a challenge,
I think a good, easy one for a lot of people. This is why I like endurance things, is because the idea of having somebody, walk or run or ride a bike, potentially, or swim, is pretty open to the masses, right? It doesn't include a barbell. You start asking people to go sign up to cross, usually I used to answer, go to your local CrossFit box.
Yeah.
Just drop in, hit a workout up. Trust me, you're going to get your ass kicked. You're going to love it or hate it. And, and I'll see you at the next meet. So that used to be my answer. But now that I've done a couple other, like, sort of, I feel like almost broadened my horizons, honestly, put my money where my mouth is. I always kind of talk shit about endurance sports. I talk shit about bodybuilding. Look, and here we go. Like, I just keep whatever I'm making fun of, I'm somehow doing it next and being humbled. So I would say, for the guy who's right off the couch, or wants to get off the couch, I think sign up for a 5K or a 10K, your local 5K or 10K. You can walk, run it, whatever, but just sign up for something, right? Just do a race, a local competition, whatever it would be. Do the turkey trot, do the New Year's run, whatever. But I think the running is an easy one because you can do it anywhere. You don't need any equipment for it. So that I think that sort of the bare minimum requirements for equipment and things like that, or training facilities, is much lower. And I also think for many people, the idea of just walking or running doesn't sound as crazy, as maybe sign up for a bodybuilding show. But trust me, you will meet pain. If you try to practice for that, you will meet punishment. Even if it's a 5K, you will have to push yourself through that, whether it's just run faster to complete it or run it nonstop. But I think that's the best one. Go sign up for a 5K. 3 miles is no joke. To be honest with you right now, if you asked me to go run 3 miles, it would be hard for me. Because the thing about running is you lose it like that.
Yeah, you do. You lose it fast.
It does not stick around. I know, because I just got humbled this past weekend. I tried to go run 4 miles and it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal for me. And that used to be like basically my warm-up miles before. So
yeah. And I would say too, I mean, on top of that, I'd say probably find a buddy to do it with you,
Absolutely.
Yeah, to hold yourself accountable.
Yes. Suffer in silence later, when you really want to take your suffering to the next level. But definitely find a suffer buddy. I certainly did. That was helpful for me. I found another dad, honestly, to commiserate with. And what was cool is he was a dad coming into his, they were having their first baby, and I was getting ready to have our second, or we were getting ready to have our second. I wasn't having it. Obviously, my wife did all that.
Hey, 50%, man, 50% work,
50%. Yeah. She'll kill me when she hears that. So it was cool to just bond with another friend and going through this major life event together and kind of challenging each other. And then of course you get a little bit of that competitive spirit comes out a little bit too. Right. So I think it all feeds into itself. So it was fun to also feel like you kind of got a brother out of this. You're about to do something scary in life and you're getting together to kind of train. And of course the inevitable, talking about stuff that's happening, what's going on with your wife while she's pregnant, like what's going on at work, all that stuff comes out too. So I think that's also what makes running kind of cool in that sense, is that you get to do that as well with people that you're running with. There's a lot of conversations that take place, a lot of thinking that happens. It's kind of therapeutic in a way.
Yeah. I would say for guys that want to find some good friends, find a buddy and put yourself through struggles together and you will become friends. Like that. That's how male bonds are formed, right? And the best buddies that I have, even though I don't talk to them, as often as I used to, but like they call the phone, I will, I'll go murder somebody for them. Is the guys in the Army, right? That I was with in the military, and it's because of that. It's because we've gone through those struggles together. We've gone through those, those hardships and times that really create that bond. And so, if you're just having surface level conversations with like guys at work, and not really getting that connection, like. Yeah, so you guys both sign up for a challenge together, put yourselves through some struggle together, and like that relationship, that bond is going to form. Get a lot closer than you would otherwise.
I think many men too. Like it's a great point you bring up, but it also, I think we need a level of competitiveness and drive, something to move us. And even if it's just your next door neighbor or whatever, you're going to end up competing. You're going to end. There's going to be days where you're going to
give me a trash can down to his before, before he does.
Right. Like he's right on your shoulder while you're running, and you're like, he's waiting to pull ahead of you or whatever. And the same thing happens in CrossFit or whatever. You're going to go on, everything's friendly, but you still. I think it brings out a little bit of that competitive spirit and nature that we just have in us innately. And I think a lot of times in our day-to-day jobs, we don't get opportunities to sort of flex those muscles, so to speak. So fitness is a way to do that too. I think it's good for us, for our soul, our sort of the lizard brain side of what we do. That's in there. So, and of course, when you're an older guy and you're not in competitive sports or anything anymore, where are you getting that? You're not getting that outlet anywhere. I think that's a lot of problem that we're dealing with nowadays too, is that people just don't have outlets for sort of these innate characteristics that we just have.
Yeah. I mean, a workout is not therapy. Make sure, that's a clear distinction there, but you're going to feel a lot better when you go push yourself. Right. it's going to fix a lot of things. There's some things that it won't, you know, and you go talk to somebody about that, but it's going to fix a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not guided therapy. That's for sure. You may be dealing with some mental stuff going on. And I certainly remember some runs where I was wandering off in all sorts of places in my brain. But yeah, it's not professional help, but man, there is no better feeling. And you can probably attest to this too, being dead on the floor, like a dead cockroach after a really hard Metcon, or, you know, finishing a super long run, or going on a big ruck. Or even right now, I can say it, even finishing some of these bodybuilding sessions, like you feel really accomplished when you're done with these things. And that energy is unstoppable. You start aiming that in other things in your life and your day, I think great things happen.
Yeah. Well, Matt, where can people find you at? I know you're pretty active on Instagram. I obviously want to give them the resource to go check out your program and More Than Average. I know you've got an app that's out now that's got some training on it. So what's the best place for people to go find you?
Absolutely. So they can find me on Instagram. All my stuff's in my bio on Instagram. So it's more Mack Scott on Instagram. That's MOREMACKSCOTT. And again, tap the link in bio, and you can find my YouTube page there. You can find all the supplements I recommend, pre-workouts, etc. Also, you can find a link directly into my app, which is on Apple Store and Google Play as well. It's More Than Average Fitness, so easy to look up. And on there, you get a 7-day free trial in there, and it's just a small monthly membership. Get access to all my programs. There's no nonsense in there. Everything that I have.
I say is the first one 40-mile run. That's like day one.
Right. Yeah. Tread lightly. There's I will be adding programs in there all along the way, but everything in there I've done is actually what a lot of my brand is built around, which is basically taking all of the people that are experts and top people in the field of fitness and nutrition. And it's sort of my layman's interpretation of a lot of the things that they recommend us do, because I feel like sometimes those people are giving recommendations, but this is the only thing they do all day, every day. Right. And so I felt like I needed to bridge that gap a little bit. So the programs are written as such. They're things that I've done specifically myself. So I highly recommend it. Hope people can check it out. And of course, love to hear people's feedback and what they think of the workouts. Some of them are pretty tough in there.
Yeah, I'm sure, man. I'm sure. So I'm going to give it a download and do the free trial. See what we got, see if you can smoke me a couple times. Yeah. But dude, Matt, thank you for coming on, man. Like I said, we've been wanting to do this for a hot minute,
Yes.
So yeah, definitely go give Mac a follow. Go check out his app. At least do the free trial. See what he's about. Definitely recommend doing that. And then, so December is the big month. So I'm sure we'll be watching all along. You guys definitely watch, Mac's journey as he puts on the pounds. It starts
building 240.
That's right, man. 240. Where are you at right now? You said you're like 207.
Yeah. Okay. End of the day, I'm like 211. But 207 in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. All right, man.
That's this week. Next week it'll be different.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on, man. Guys, definitely go check out the links below. And Matt, dude, appreciate it. And guys, we'll see you on the next episode.